We should focus on to this now. Action South Africa President Herman Mashaba is accusing government of lying about the Lily mine tragedy. Mashaba wants answers about the deaths of 3 miners who died in a container during a tremor at the mine 4 years ago. Earlier this year, he went to court to try and compel government to retrieve the bodies. My colleague Slindelo Masikane has been following developments where that is concerned. So what exactly did we hear from Mr. Mashaba?
Well, in essence, Herman Mashaba has accused the Department of Mineral Resources and government of lying to the people of South Africa as well as the families affected by the Lily mine collapse. We know that, of course, 4 years ago, 3 miners have been trapped inside a container which was used as a lamp at the Lily mine. We're talking about Yvonne Mnisi, Pretin Kambule, as well as Solomon Nyarende, and their families, in fact, have for the past 500 days and counting been camping outside that mine, pleading with government to have their bodies retrieved. We know that in African cultures it's quite important the way in which somebody is buried, and they just have not had closure since then, and they've been fighting this battle and eventually approached the Action SA President Mr. Herman Mashaba during his People's Dialogue to assist them with the retrieval of the bodies of their family members. And what Herman Mashaba then subsequently did was then go to court to try and force government to give him the documents that were used following the inquiry into the collapse to see exactly what scientific evidence was used to deem the container irretrievable. And he says, following the receival of these documents and looking through the 500-page document as well as the annexes, that there's no forensic evidence that indicates or scientific evidence rather that government used to deem the container irretrievable. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Despite claims of the existence of the report by rock and engineering specialists, no mention is made of such a report or any of the findings. For all intents and purposes, it does not exist. What this means is that the decision to deem the container irretrievable, while no doubt based on something, was not based on a professional assessment of the mine. What this means is that the cost of retrieving the container, which have been bandied around, have been based on propaganda to support the case that retrieving the container is impossible. What it means is that these former miners, their families, members of the media, our parliament, and the South African people have been subjected to one of the most elaborate lies in the history of our nation. I'm here today, alongside these brave South Africans, to announce that our legal teams will now begin the work of implementing a legal strategy that will force our government to retrieve that container. I'm assured that in the first half of next year, we will be in court. When the day comes, what I can tell you is this: we will achieve a court order instructing the DMR to retrieve that container. We will argue the need for a court to find a conduct of DMR to be reprehensible and to compel the department to identify those responsible for the perpetration of this lie.
And of course, family members were there. You did mention a little bit earlier on that all they want is closure and to be able to bury their loved ones. What did we hear from them today?
Well, what we heard in essence from the family representatives that were there, we heard from the father of one of the miners that's still trapped underground, as well as the mother, as well as the younger brother of those affected families. And I mean, you could really tell that they're really at pains right now to try and retrieve this container, to just have some closure. We heard from the younger brother of Pretin Kambule, who said that his sister left a child who was just an infant when his mother was trapped underground, and to this day he doesn't have answers for that child in terms of where his mother is buried, just to explain exactly where they can go and see her, because her body is still trapped underground. So the families just are really looking for closure on this matter, to just be able to say their final goodbyes, and to be able to give closure to their family members on what's happened. Let's just take a listen to what one of the mine representatives had to say.
We are the people from Lily Mine, and we've been camping outside the mine for 513 days today. The reason for us to do so is because it was over 3 years waiting for a solution, families waiting for closure. There are unions, labor representatives in South Africa. We've got government in various departments, but there was no solution and there was no communication amongst ourselves and whoever might help. So that is why we took it upon ourselves to go and camp inside the mine, so that we'll put pressure to our government, especially DMRE in particular, as the regulator in the industry. What happened then? The intervention from our government was not the one we expected, because instead of getting assistance, we were assaulted by South African police officers. That's the only and a quicker intervention. Before we mark 2 weeks, we were assaulted by our own government, calling us unlawful invaders.
Any word, Slee, from the Department of Mineral Resources?
Well, we've had an opportunity to speak to one of the mine inspectors from the department, Mr. David Msiza, and I did put the allegations to him regarding the department lying to the nation with the retrievability of the container. And he says that nowhere has government said that the container is irretrievable. It's an issue of safety when it comes to retrieving that container. He says that in terms of the regulations and the act when it comes to mine safety, that if you're going to retrieve something like a container from underground, there needs to be at least 2 safe entry and exit points, and at this stage that isn't possible at the Lily Mine. But he's saying that they are continuously trying to engage with the family to keep them abreast, and they did so 3 weeks ago. And he says that it's not a matter of government not wanting to retrieve this container, it's an issue of safety.
You mentioned earlier that the families have been camping there for over 500 days. Do they intend to continue with that?
Certainly, they do intend to continue with that. They're saying that until that container is retrieved, they're not going anywhere.
Slindelo Masikane, thank you very much for those details.